On the keynote, Engaging Youth, Fostering Multilingualism for Inclusion in Education and Society Among African Youth, will bring you Nena Nwana, the authority on royalty for Omenuko. Omenuko is the first African literary work in the first language, or what we call the mother tongue. And Nena Nwana, in a keynote, will be talking us through what it is, what has gone on with Omenuko since it was published in the 1930s. And then after that, my colleague, Her Excellency Ambassador Dr. Diane Kinolly, shall take it from there. But before Madam Chancellor speaks, I will take a special privilege to honor His Royal Highness Shehu Usman Chindo Yamusa III, Chairman of the Shehu Usman Chindo Yamusa II Foundation and the Emir of Kefi in Nasarawa State of Nigeria. The Emir has taken the reins of his late fathers to champion the cause of youth in Africa, and today his foundation is a member of the Board of Trustees for the YOUTHGETHER Global. I want to thank the Emir specifically for having stayed very patiently with us and for accepting to join the Board of Trustees and for accepting to, to move the dreams and visions and the values of YOUTHGETHER Global forward. On that note, I want to invite Dr. Johnny Okika, the Chancellor of YOUTHGETHER Global, to please give us the United Nations UNESCO message on the Mother Tongue Day. Dr. Okika.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Star. I was brought here to the Governing Council of YOUTHGETHER Global, and it's interesting for us to join the global community to mark this special day, apprehending the Mother Tongue Day across the world. Incidentally, being Sunday, the United Nations, the diplomatic community celebrated this on Friday. And being an initiative under UNESCO, the executive director, the UNESCO chief, was able to release some message regarding the 2021 Mother Tongue Day. And in her message, she says, the annual commemoration honors linguistic diversity and multilingualism, called this process Heritage of Humanity. The focus this year is on inclusion, both in the classroom and in society. So the UNESCO chief, she said, this is essential because when 40% of the world's inhabitants do not have access to education in the language they speak or understand best, it hinders their learning, as well as their access to heritage and cultural expressions. As she said in her message for the day, this year, special attention is being paid to multilingual education from early childhood, so that for children, their mother tongue is always an asset. Bringing in the COVID-19 threat, the UNESCO chief said that International Mother Language Day is being celebrated as the world continues to battle the COVID-19 pandemic, which has widened inequalities in education. UNESCO chief said many of the 1.5 billion students worldwide and unable to attend school at the peak of the crisis had no access to distant learning. The pandemic, she further noted, is also threatening cultural diversity as festivals and other events have been canceled, with the impact affecting creators and the media. UNESCO chief underscored her agency's commitment to promoting multilingualism, including on internet. UNESCO is also the lead agency for the International Decade of Indigenous Languages, which begins next year. She said the International Day, like the decade, presents the challenges of ensuring the diversity of world language is preserved as a common heritage. For when a language dies, a way of seeing, feeling, and thinking the words disappear, and all of cultural diversity is irretrievably diminished, according as he said. On this International Day, UNESCO therefore calls for the celebration of the world in all its diversity and support for the multilingualism in everyday life. The International Modern Language Day recognizes that languages and multilingualism can advance inclusion and the Sustainable Development Goals, focusing on leaving no one behind. UNESCO believes education based on the first language or mother tongue must begin from early years, as early childhood care and education is the foundation of learning. The organizers of this event, the Center for SDG Global Education USA, the Sub-Saharan Open University, and His Royal Highness Sheikh Usman Chindo Yamusu II Foundation, enact action through the YOUTHGETHER Global Initiative to advance engagement of youth and students to the Decade of Action and the African Union 2063. Through the multilingualism of African languages, paving way for inclusive innovation and creativity of their thought processes about safeguarding our mother tongue and heritage for posterity. This year's observance is a call on policymakers, educators and teachers, parents and families to scale up their commitment to multilingual education and inclusion in education to advance education recovery in the context of COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chancellor. Before I invite Her Imperial Majesty, I need to say that for those of you who are not very familiar with the Queen of Sheba, she has dedicated her life to making Africa work. She has done everything possible to attract investment and development work to Africa. I'm going to let her explain that herself, but there is a training program for business opportunities towards warp speed nation building of Africa. She has invited YOUTHGETHER Global to join her and her team, and we're looking forward to that opportunity to work with her. I'm also very excited to say that having known the Queen of Sheba all this while, I met her for the first time last year, and in that short period, I followed her work very assiduously. And before I knew it, I was already communicating with the Crown Secretariat, and we've been working together now to see where our relationship will lead us in Africa. So I am going to invite Her Imperial Majesty, the Queen of Sheba, to take a special opening statement on fostering multilingualism for inclusion in education and society. Your Imperial Majesty.
We need the video before Her Excellency, Her Majesty.
Your Imperial Majesty, please give us time to launch you with an African who sings about tomorrow. Okay, thank you. Once again, I want to welcome you all back while we invite Her Imperial Majesty, the Queen of Sheba, to please launch the event.
Day to each and every one of you here today. Thank you so much, Your Highness, for that very warm welcome. Languages are important. When a child enters the world and first starts making those sounds, the child makes it sound very natural and copycats what it hears from parents. I wish to welcome all to this very exceptional event that I'm so proud to be a part of. I'm so proud because language is the foundation of who we are. Language is the identification of ourselves. Language within nature itself is a language that the entire empire, the entire kingdom of nature understands. From the roars of the lions to the bark of the dogs, from the meow of the cat. How much more so for that of humanity? If I wish to explain myself, then I need to explain myself in a language that I feel and I can bring that passion over in. One cannot always do that in a language that is learned outside of the languages in the home, outside of the languages you hear your parents speaking, outside of the languages you heard dad and grandma and grandpa and everyone speaking. The language is so important. And with the languages, we keep as well that inherent part of our culture. That is important. His Highness, in introducing what we were doing, whilst you were speaking, I thought of that and the importance in that link. If I may, just to accentuate on my point, I will be as brief as possible so I would not hold the program. We just launched a currency for Africa. But it was more important than a mere currency. A currency is just a tool, the same as a spoon or a cup or a saucer or a plate. It's a tool, and a tool that is used for a purpose. What is important was the how culture and language and all keeps a people united. This all came from a place in the Americas, in the Caribbean to be precise, and a time in the colonial era when people were taken out of Africa. There was a group that fought so hard for their freedom and refused to be enslaved, refused to be taught a new culture, refused to lose their natural tongue, and they fought. Those people were called the Maroons. And that battle that they fought was against the colonial powers at that time. But what I find so interesting was that guns and cannons was not enough to crush these people that fought for their culture, that fought for their freedom, and important, that fought for their language. That led in 1739 to a treaty. Can you imagine? At that time, you had Africa under colonial yoke. You had the Americas and all of these places under colonial yoke. You had India, Europe, all of these places under the colonialism. And yet you had a group of people that identified with their culture, that identified with their origin, that identified with their language, and refused to adopt the new names that they had to adopt, refused to not speak to each other in that language. And they fought. And what happened was historic. And by what was won, they were the first state that was free, the first 288 years ago, because of the honoring of who we are and all that goes inherent with that and the language. Even today, it can be a bit exaggerated in the Maroon state because anything that looks colonial, they still are so wrapped around that and the language. It was the language of the drums, the language of the people, the language that they remember from Africa, the languages that kept all alive, the languages. And it was based on the language and based on the culture that 288 years later, well, I have to take some years off because 2015, that the people came together and formed not just the state was already formed, but started forming an infrastructure to represent the culture, to represent the purpose, to represent the language of freedom, which is from their mother tongue. Today, that has been expanded, and we have been since October, launching a currency that is now adopted by AFRA and the African Central Bank of Central Banks, based on those people and the fight there that is a part of the royal community of which I'm from. And on the notes is the Afang that blows that language of truth. Language is important because within the language is your identity, within the language is yourself. And you cannot find yourself in someone else, only in you. There's just one you, and your language is one unique language to you and your family. It is important. It should not even be a discussion. This meeting should not be happening. It should just be there, that you are able to study in your language. You are able to read books in your language. You're able to go online and have everything done in your language. That is something that we're investing in. We will be launching in Africa the computer systems in the languages of Africa. It's why I found this so interesting. We must have the languages of Africa and not insult it with terminologies as dialects and all of that. It's a language, because in the language is our magic, is the power, and is the future of Africa. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so, so much. Your Imperial Majesty, you never fail to wow me. The last time we were together, the last time we were together, I told you that it was just the beginning, and I know that the way you feel about Africa is the way you get a global face about Africa. We'll have so much to do together, and we're looking to working with you.
Absolutely.
We're looking to getting you back on this platform to continue doing what you do best and learning from you. Thank you so much, Your Majesty. Thank you. I don't know if Ambassador Diane is there. I am going to let you introduce, and then we'll take it from there. You and I would have to co-do this because Ambassador Forward is here to show. Welcome, Your Excellency.
Awesome. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. And Your Imperial Majesty, we appreciate your notes. So excited to have you here with us. Thank you for those words of empowerment and words of encouragement. And in this, thank you so much, our Chancellor, Dr. Ada Okika, and our Chairman of the YOUTHGETHER Global Governing Council, Your Excellency, Dr. Osita. In this next session, we are going to be looking at the vehicle of delivery and what it will take to enhance inclusion in education through inclusive policy and practice in teaching and learning, integrating multilingualism. And we are excited to have with us Dr. Ezi Mecha, Mother Tongue and Cultural Expert and CEO of World Ebony Network in the USA and Africa. You are welcome.
Thank you so very much. I am very excited to be on this panel and very impressed and happy with the work that YOUTHGETHER Global is doing and the importance of UNESCO pushing mother tongue in schools. Mother tongue, as we have been talking about here, is very, very important in learning. And we have heard from His Royal Highness and everyone that mother tongue based multilingual education helps to retain the mother tongue and connect with the identity. Research has shown that educating people in early education, that they do better in latter years when they are educated in their mother tongue or where they are bilingual. Research conducted in Maryland recently, I'm not sure what date that is, also showed that parents, native family enhanced communication and connection with others, particularly with grandparents. While they know and understand the importance of language, they also feel sadness about their children not being able to visit their home countries and connect with relatives. And so while we understand the importance of introducing mother tongue in policy and learning, and there are also challenges, and it is those challenges that drove our organization to examine and provide solutions, um, realistic solutions. And in a minute, I'm going to tell you my story. But some of the challenges that come up about mother tongue is that in Africa, at least in a country in Africa, not even just the country in Africa, but let's just take a tribe, or let's take the three tribes of main tribes in a country like Nigeria. They're literally about 20 something, 200 and something dialects for each tribe, and well, not each tribe, I mean them combined together, and standard languages. So then the question is, what are you actually going to teach your child? Are you going to teach your child the standard language or the dialects? And there's also, if that were to be introduced into schools, there's the competition with other extracurricular activities, because which mother tongue are they actually going to introduce in schools? And so accommodating all of this, it also costs a lot. And so some people responded and said, they said, there's a response, I'm going to read it here, and it says that according to, no, everybody gives the respect to our mother tongue, and every children should learn mother tongue, but in English is an international language. We are living in the era of globalization, so we have to learn English for our higher study and communication. My mother tongue is Bengali, but if I go abroad, nobody will understand Bengali, so I'll be in trouble. But English is the language anywhere I can communicate. For corporate sector, if I want to join, I have to conversate in English. Without that, I will not get a job. In higher study, also, I would not be able to do so in our mother tongue. If children from their beginning, they will not learn English when the future, well, this, I guess the typo, but this, I was actually trying to read it exactly as one of the parents responded. So the key thing is, while we know that it's important to introduce the update the policies or make mother tongue inclusive in schools, the reality is it's very challenging. So at the onset of our organization, and while I was raising my children are second generation Americans, and I am first generation American. I was born in Tuskegee, Alabama, and I was taken to Nigeria post-war. And my parents, they insisted that I speak the language. When we were here in the 60s, not a lot, I mean, people didn't speak it. there were a lot of our family friends spoke. There were white people or African Americans, and there was the reality of coming, surviving. My parents had to do that. So when you're in their midst, then that's what you have to speak. So there was that combination of learning that mother tongue as well as American English. And so I did the best I can. Well, my parents did try to push that in America then, but when I got to Nigeria, I saw people like myself. I met my family, my siblings for the first time. And I had to struggle to understand them and also to speak with them. And my parents told me that I could not speak the English that I started with at home. And being a child, it was very, very difficult, very challenging. And sometimes as a child, no one knows what you're dealing with. If you have to also adjust yourself to play with your friends. And if you spoke, they laughed at you because you're trying to learn the language. Then the school that I attended at the time was the only school within the environment that we grew up in. That was University of Nigeria, Nsukka. And if you spoke Igbo, you were punished. They said it was vernacular. And so that didn't even help. And here I was as a child trying to adjust to all of these things. And sometimes you felt like it affected the way you were speaking, but people from outside saw you differently. And my parents they were persistent. And in being persistent, they insisted that we that we referred to them as nna and ne, which is the Igbo version of mom and dad. Other people weren't doing that, other families. And so when you're trying to call your parents' attention outside in front of your friends, sometimes you were ashamed of that. But my parents insisted. And at some point, I was yanked from the university primary school and taken to town school so that I would learn how to speak the language. And because the environment that we lived in what they spoke was different from what we spoke at home, even though it was the same language. I had to pick dialects from different places depending on who I was speaking to. If I was talking to my friends from what I thought was Onitsha, Anambra State area, I would try to talk to them in that dialect that they were talking to me. So I was grabbing all of that from different areas. But fast forward into the future, when I returned to America and then started raising children, I began to appreciate what my parents did. And I insisted that my children would speak it too. The wonderful thing that helped me out was the fact that I was also teaching at a special school, because my first academic after a post high school learning was art education. So I was already in that education side. So I got a job teaching in a special school. And that taught me how I could apply our teaching methodology in the house. And so I would try to read books to my children in the language. I insist that they also speak it. My mom came and joined me at some point, and when she did, I also encouraged, we planned that we were not going to speak English in the house. For the longest time, my children thought my mother didn't know how to speak English, even up until today, because she still lives with me. So when one of my kids went to school, he did not want to learn how to speak any other thing. He didn't like the Spanish. And so I told the school, I said, well, is it possible that we could use the foreign language that my child speaks at home? Because he already is fluent in a language. And they told me that they were already speaking Swahili. Swahili was one of the foreign language courses. So I said, my family we're not from there. I can't teach my child how to speak Swahili, even though at some point it would be a good idea for them to learn it. But Igbo is what I wanted them to learn. And so therein began our organization's journey to find out how we could use that language as to fulfill the foreign language requirements. People told me that if I was able to get enough people to support our quest to introduce that into the school, that maybe we could introduce that. So the challenge here is the fact that there are so many dialects, there's so many languages, is a little bit difficult. It's very expensive trying to do that. However, one of the things that I have said to people in our organization is saying is that we should not put the burden on the schools. The burden we should do the work. My mother used to say to some family friends that would say, oh, our children understand it. She's like, it's not about understanding. They have to speak it. And it's very true. They have to speak it, because if they don't, then they would never actually come out to speak that language. And so I appreciate the fact that it should, mother tongue should be introduced to schools, but I want us to look at it from a very realistic perspective and understand that it may not be possible. So within our communities and within the family, we really have to try. It can be quite difficult to do that while you're also trying to survive. And that's what a lot of parents have told us. That is very difficult. And especially now that people are marrying, that there's an increase in multiracial marriages. So what are you going to teach the child? In the Igbo culture, if a woman is married to a man, then the woman has to try as much as possible to start with the man's language. However, what we have been told is if the man himself is not even trying, then the wives have complained that it's difficult doing that. So those are some of the things that World Ebony Network has considered. And what we have done is we've pushed the classes or courses from another platform that I have. That one is a for-profit company, and that company is teaching foreign language. It included foreign language just because people can go there and learn it, and then use World Ebony Network's projects as a testing ground to be able to implement what we want to implement. So I think I'm going to stop here, and I really want to thank you all for having me as one of the speakers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ezi, for reminding us of the tensions that are the lived experience when we continue to promote speaking our mother tongue in the home and in our communities. And as we are continuing to shift towards a global community that is inclusive, the responsibility remains with us in the home and in our communities. And we are certainly grateful for companies like World Ebony Network that are available to us in this in this ideal. So we appreciate you and we appreciate the work that you're doing. We're grateful to have you with us today, and certainly are so much better for what we have learned from your session. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And next up, we have Mr. Anthony Nwisi, the convener of Alagbo projects in the United Kingdom. You are welcome, Mr. Anthony. We are, Mr. Anthony Nwisi, we are grateful to have you with us.
Well, thanks very much. It's a real pleasure to be with you. How much time do I have?
That's a great question. That is a great question. I think the time is 10 minutes.
10 minutes, okay, that's fine.
10 minutes.
Oh,
So that's
Thank you so
great.
much. Mhm.
That's pretty good, thank you. Well, you know, the issue of multiculturalism, multi-language, especially in learning, is a critical one, because at the heart of language is identity. At the very heart of it is identity. You know, who am I? Where have I come from? And what am I doing here? And so I, for instance, I'm an Igbo man. I live in England. I lived there for over 20 years. Matter of fact, I've lived half of my life in UK and the other half in Nigeria. And so at a point, I came to the crossroads of the issues of identity. Am I an Englishman? Because I've lived here, I'm British, and I've lived here for so many years, as much as I've lived in Nigeria, because I came here to do university and so on and so forth. Am I an Igbo man? And all of that. So at the heart of learning, especially early childhood, is identity. And what helped me was the time I spent in Nigeria, where I was born, with my parents. My mother spoke Igbo to me. My dad spoke Igbo to me. So the daily conversation was in our language. So as I grew up, I went on to university and travel and so on and so forth. And you know, obviously made new friends, new relationship, into business. That identity remained with me. And as you get older, you also begin to look at your children and the next generation. And I couldn't agree more with the topic of today's conversation. The critical importance of language. Because if I did not have that background, I would really have struggled with all the years I spent in Europe. If I didn't have that appreciation, it would have, you know, it's very easy to get lost in Europe or get lost in America or wherever you end up in life. And so it's a challenge for us as parents, as well as a responsibility to parents, and also for us to challenge our governments, educators, policymakers, to make sure that we early mother tongue is introduced to children as early as possible, and that they learn in their mother tongue, because that's what's going to carry them all the way. And I understand the argument about English, you know, which one of the panelists was talking about, in terms of, if I don't know English, how would I get a job? Because English is the language of commerce today. And while in school, speaking her native language was termed as vernacular. I think those were mistakes of people of the old. They were very poor mistakes. Why do I say that? I live here in Europe. I live here in London for many years. My children, in their school, they learn Latin, they learn French, they learn German, and they learn English. And so, and this is all the way to high school level, compulsory in their school. Of course, they had the choice of you doing one or two languages alone, but in that particular school, they had to do 3 languages. And these children today, they speak English, French, Latin, German fluently, because again, exchange programs. And so when you take it back to Africa or to other third world countries, yes, is a place, English is important because it's a language of commerce, it's a language of international diplomacy today. I mean, we can't hide from that. But children have the capacity to learn 3, 4, 5 languages if we teach them, if we facilitate the learning. And so it becomes a duty for us as parents definitely to teach our children our native language from early on, but also to engage with policymakers, engage with educators to make sure that the children are learning their mother tongue language right from early school. Indeed, I don't see why they can't take it all the way to first degree level, but certainly compulsory all the way to high school level or A levels, as they call it in the United Kingdom here. And one of the studies that was conducted on this issue of mother tongue learning and the children found that there was issues with policymakers. For instance, in my country, a particular study I was looking at, they found that there was a very clear policy on that, and then also the government didn't have a solid monitoring system to monitor that. And then, of course, you had the issue of some of the teachers, because they wanted to, if you like, be seen to belong, they seemed more proud to speak in English to the children than the native languages. So a responsibility clearly there, both for policymakers, for parents, and for educators. And if we do that, you'll see that our children will not only be able to excel, academically, but also emotionally. They have what I call emotional intelligence, because the issue of identity is resolved in language. Issue of culture is resolved in language. And if you take away the mother tongue, you begin to chip away at identity. And if a man or woman is not clear about their identity, then you can call them lost. And at the end of it, so what have we achieved? So I will yield to the panel because I could go on and on, but that's the summary of what I have to share. At the heart of early learning, at the heart of learning in your native mother tongue is identity. Who are you? Who am I? And a man cannot afford to get that wrong or lose that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Nwisi. A real call for us to pay attention to how important it is for us to engage with parents, with policy makers, and with those who are in the education mountain. I really liked the next 2 points that you provided for us, which is the issue of identity is resolved in language and culture. And at the heart of learning is our identity. So really appreciate this amazing session with Dr. Ezi Mecher and Mr. Anthony Nwisi. We appreciate you for really driving home how important enhancing inclusion in education through inclusive policy and practice in teaching and learning, integrating and multilingualism, and the issue of identity, the part that we have to play as parents, as community policymakers, and the heart of learning in identity, and the wonderful companies out there that are doing the work that we can lean on. So I'm going to hand over to our amazing chairman of the YOUTHGETHER Governing Council, Dr. Osita, handing over to you to take over. It's been a pleasure to serve you and look forward to interacting with you for the rest of this session. Also, any questions that you have, you can put them through, and towards the end or as we go along, we will pick them up. I saw a couple of hands raised. So please feel free to include your questions in that section. Your Excellency, Dr. Osita, over to you.
May I add something before, since I thought I had 5 minutes, and so I was trying to rush, and so I would imagine that I still have a little bit more to say. Thank you so much.
Go ahead.
So that excerpt that I was reading, I actually found the person's name. His name is Tinku Paul, and he was responding to the research that was done in Maryland about the challenges that he was having. See, the thing is, I share Mr. Wiss's point of view in terms of mother tongue and identity, which is the reason I ensured that my children spoke it. But the reality is the fact that the community does not have enough of that. In fact, I worry about how we can advance the language, who my children are going to marry, because if those are the people are not speaking the language, then that means that the language stops with them. But the reality that I'm making here is the fact that including that as a policy in school is a big challenge and may not be as realistic, not in Africa, but in the diaspora, like in Maryland here, or in the metropolitan area, just because the community, they're not together. And so they're not really pushing that. And so we're not going to let the school start including that mother tongue, because there's so many. I'm not going to teach my children the Central Igbo first before I teach them Ohafia, which is where I come from. And right now they speak Ohafia. Now we're trying to get them to now speak the Central Igbo. That's the reality. So we're looking at the reality. They already know their identity. In fact, when my children try to talk to people that they know are Igbos, they start speaking to them in Ohafia. And unfortunately, the adults speak to them in English and tell them, oh, I'm not hearing you. Oh, and then they laugh. One of the examples is when Ojus Okalu came to Maryland, and my son was listening to them. I went with him and he was listening. And then when they said questions and answers, he raised his hand and said he wanted to ask a question. And when they called him to talk, he started giving a speech in Igbo. That time he was 15 years old. And the people started laughing. And the governor said to everyone, you know, I'm ashamed that you all are laughing. This young kid has taken the time and try to address everybody in the language, and you all are laughing. And so he commended him. But then pushing that further, we wrote him a letter, and we asked him if he could encourage. And in fact, my son said, if you can bring us back and make it possible for us to be able to connect with where we come from and help with doing work there, we would be very happy. That was a great opportunity for the governor to respond and make something happen. We even wrote him. Up until today, he has not written. It wasn't me that wrote, it was him that wrote, and he has not responded. So in as much as it's important to include the mother tongue in the policy in Nigeria, but a lot of people are already coming out here. So what do we do about that connection? I think that those should be things that we really should also remember to work on, in addition to trying to figure out how we could introduce something in, our mother tongue in the policy. But whose policy? Is it Maryland's policy or Nigeria's policy? So that was what I wanted to make sure that my presentation highlighted today. But I agreed with all of the things that you were saying, Mr. Nwisi.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Isimecha. Thank you to Anthony. We have spoken about this for a long time before, and I know your perspectives. In Africa, there is a name, Peter Mwana. Peter Mwana in West Africa might ring no bells, but in the literary community amongst the Igbos, that name commands a lot of influences. A renowned carpenter and a foreman at Methodist College, Uzakoli in Abia State, Mwana was the author of the foremost ever written literary work in the entire continent. The book was called Omenuko. Omenuko was written in Igbo language. At some point in the history of the book, some very renowned Nigerians wanted to keep it for posterity, turn it into a script for film. And then I was telling somebody the other day that if Omenuko had gone, or the Black Panther would have been second, because Omenuko will have hit the screen long time before now. But while that was going on, Peter Mwana's son, who at that point was in his 80s, had to go for negotiation for this to happen with his daughter. Ladies and gentlemen, fortunately for us, his daughter, Harry Mwana's daughter, Miss Nena Mwana, is here with us. And I'm going to invite her to take it from there and tell us what mother tongue means to her as the granddaughter of the great man who wanted to influence Africa with work in native language, and also tell us what she feels about mother tongue in education. Nena.
Thank you very much, Osita. And good day, everybody. My name is Nena Mwana. And like he rightly said, I'm the granddaughter of Peter Mwana, who in 1933 was encouraged by his principal then at the Methodist College of Zoakoli, a white man, to enter a competition that was on. And you can imagine, he didn't know English. And the principal said, you know what? You write what you know in Igbo. And that's exactly what he did. More than 2 decades before Chinua Achebe wrote his world authentic Things Fall Apart. So after he wrote that, he eventually won. And Longman's publishing company in England took it up to publish the book, and they did. From then on, it was introduced into schools, and it was read all across the Eastern region schools. Up to this day, people still remember the book. It was one of the first books they used in learning the Igbo language. A lot of people will be one now. Is that Omeno? Again, we have to remember 40s were taught, subjects were taught in Igbo. It didn't stop people from reaching the heights of their academic pursuit. It hasn't stopped it. With Igbo, I'm trying to bring back Omenoko because the West African School Certificate Commission would really want Omenoko back in schools, even up to the secondary school level, and have it as a certificate subject. but they are asking me to translate, to, to make it more to so many other people. Like Dr. Eze rightly said, whose dialect are you going to use? Because my grandfather wrote his book in my dialect. I'm from Maroons, Imo State. And he wrote it in his dialect. It becomes a job for some other person to actually understand and appreciate the story of Womanico. And I'm at that point. Mother tongue has to come back to everybody. I'm one person who believe, I hear people, somebody, I think Dr. Eze talked about having to marry somebody who is not from your place. Mother tongue is mother tongue. You marry a woman who is not from your place. And one person, don't wait to teach your children your husband's language. Teach them your mother, teach them that. There are families who have two different cultures and their children can't even pick up any of them. And that's very, very disheartening. So it would help. Use my daughter as an example. She was born and raised in the US. She never knew the airport to Nigeria till she was maybe 6, 7. But you know what? At that age, she knew she understood Igbo, she spoke it. I could scold her in public in Igbo, and she'll know what will happen when we get home. People used to ask me, oh, was she born in Nigeria? I said, no, she was born here. And now that's why, oh, she has Igbo accent. I said, is she not an Igbo girl? Cool. I hail the Spanish people who can't even, Spanish parents, I've met a lot of them, who can't even say a word of English. Their children speak perfect, fluent English. Why won't other cultures do the same? Quite a lot of them, Russians, Chinese, a lot of them do that. But when we come to Africa, it becomes elitist to say, oh, I don't understand, or they tell you, oh, their children don't understand, don't speak to my children in Igbo. They don't understand and they can't speak it. And I'm supposed to clap for you? No, we're losing it. We are losing it. I hold parents responsible for this. Hold parents highly responsible for it. I'm glad UNESCO is talking about. See the challenges having your mother tongue being taught in school. Like Dr. Eze rightly, which of the dialects is going to be taught? But you know what? Let us start somewhere. If I'm going to have to talk about Nigeria, let's use the mother tongue in that area to teach the children. They will catch on. They will catch on. My father was raised in New Igbo land. Did it stop him from speaking and eating and whining and dining with the Queen of England? No. We have to be able to carry the two together. The world has changed. And by the way, policies, we have immigration policies where you now able to be dual citizens. If you're not holding on to your mother tongue, why do you want to have two passports? if you cannot embrace the culture of the second passport. If you're not able to embrace it, then drop it and concentrate on English. Yes, English has become the universal, but everywhere around the world, they still hold on to their cultural language. The former German Prime Minister, the lady, when she addresses, she talks in German. If you want to understand her, you get an interpreter. In the UN, I always admire the Iranian president who speaks very good English, but he addresses the UN in Iranian language. Omenuko Sinaka Pitawana Pota, it's universal in Igbo land. It has to come back. It has to come back. Mother tongue, we cannot allow our mother tongue to go into oblivion. We cannot. The story of Amenuka, I will tell you a bit. It's a real story, right? Although when he was writing it, he was scared. It was during the slave trade. A few of you would know about it, but I'll give you a brief history of Amenuka. He wrote about the slave trade, right? And he wrote about a man in my village who was into slave trade, into slave trading. And he went up to the extent of selling off his relations. And that's when my grandfather decided, oh, this man needs to be, he found it interesting and he wrote about it. After he finished, word got back to the man. The family still exists. Word got back to the man that Peter Wana is writing about you and, so he invited my grandfather. My grandfather went to meet him with the fear that he might be dead. He might get sold off for writing about the atrocities of the man. But the man, rather than being pissed, was so proud that somebody thought it necessary to write during the slavery, and even told him, thank you, but you could have come to me. I could have given you more information so your book will be more authentic. Can you imagine? So, and that's how come people now knew that it was truly based on a true story, as much as it was just a story being told. I believe mother tongue should come back. I remember in my early days, up to secondary school, you're given the choice to take on Igbo, Yoruba, or Hausa. It was always a choice. There's no such thing anymore, their mother tongue, if nothing else. Omenuko, by the way, is in the library. I think I want to stop there. If you have questions, I could go on and on this matter. It's passionate about anything culture, in particular, anything that concerns the Igbo people. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Nana Wana. I have spoken with you. I have worked with you, and I know that you're very passionate about this. When we started this program, I introduced the His Royal Highness Shehu Usman Chindo Yamusa, the Second Foundation. I talked a lot about how we started working with the son of Yamusa II, who is His Royal Highness Shehu Usman Chindo Yamusa III. He is the Emir of Kefi. This foundation, the Shehu Usman Chindo Yamusa Foundation, the second foundation, is a member of the Board of Trustees for the YOUTHGETHER Global. Please permit me to introduce Mr. Kande Abubakar, the Executive Director for the foundation, to please come and introduce the next panel session from the moderator. Kande Abubakar, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I am indeed honored to be introduced by you. And since we are discussing multilingualism, I want to be a little bit practical by welcoming you all to these sessions using the three major languages in Nigeria, which are the Hausa, the Igbo, and the Yoruba, by saying Igbatago, Ekabo, and Sanudezua. Yeah, I have two brief tasks before me, which is one to talk about the global mission of YOUTHGETHER Global, and also to introduce the moderator for the session. I would like to start with the former by continuing from where my respected Chancellor, Dr. Ada Okika, stopped in providing an overview of the activities of the YOUTHGETHER Global. YOUTHGETHER Global as a movement is a movement for engagement through campaigns and advocacy, youth for youth exchange programs, information sharing, mentoring and orientation, youth role models, leadership development, strengthening youth identity towards positive direction, as well as engaging youth to envision themselves as instruments for global action. I also like to talk about the VMV of YOUTHGETHER Global, that is the mission, the vision, and the values. The vision of YOUTHGETHER Global is to lead global youth to become part of nation building. And its mission is to create an opportunity and foundation of support for global youth in the quest for nation building. And its values is in creating a movement that will engage the youth for global action. YOUTHGETHER Global values is considered most necessary as a guiding philosophy to achieve the mission and vision of the initiative. The values will inculcate in the minds of the youth, one, sense of right and wrong, growth and development, as well as work them up to create the future they want and to be able to make decisions adequately. Also, the values we focus on individual values, that is in building personal identity, self-perception, enthusiasm, creativity, listening, learning, humility, and personal fulfillment. Also, it also focuses on the relationship values, which centers on the relationship with others, including openness, trust, generosity, and care. And lastly, is to focus on social values, which addresses social emotional learning, relationship with society, including leadership, uh, and leading, justice, freedom, respect, community, and responsibility. The last but not the least, its value focus is the educational values, which will be addressing inclusive education, accountability, strategic thinking, value style due to new life experience. And this has this brings me to the end of the first task assigned to me. And the second is to introduce the moderator for this session. Our moderator is the current regional African coordinator of YOUTHGETHER Global and the national coordinator of YOUTHGETHER Global in Kenya. He is a student of the Masinde Muliro University of Science and Technology in Kenya. He is a go-getter and a self-confident personality. Our moderator is a youth leader who is self-assured without being overbearing, and with his humility, he instills self-confidence in his team members. It takes his time to engage in core self-evaluations and brings enthusiasm, optimism, and warmth to his work. With his authenticity and assertiveness, it was very easy to identify him early to lead Kenya, and now he leads his region and the burgeoning African YOUTHGETHER global plains. Your Highnesses, Your Excellencies, Your Majesties, distinguished ladies and gentlemen.
From the panel, we are promoting comprehensive inclusive education, care with youth, students and children living and learning together through multilingualism, the way forward for the African youth. First and foremost in this panel will be the current beauty queen from the Caribbean, from Venezuela. I'm very proud of her. Shaniza Persaud is the 2020-2021 Miss CARICOM Global Queen, and she'll be speaking on safeguarding of cultural heritage and global engagement of youth. Shaniza?
Yes, hello, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, and welcome.
Thank you. Firstly, I'd like to thank you, Dr. Rosita and Dr. Ada, for inviting me and having me among all you amazing people. And like was previously mentioned, yes, I will be talking about safeguarding our cultural heritage and the global engagement of youth. Mindful of the time, firstly, let's define safeguarding. According to the Cambridge Dictionary, safeguarding is to protect someone or something so that they are not harmed, damaged, or lost. Let's now define cultural heritage. Cultural heritage is an expression of the ways of living developed by a community and passed on from generation to generation, including customs, places, objects, artistic expressions, values, and traditions. Cultural heritage implies a shared bond, our belonging to a community. It represents our history and our identity, our bond to the past, our present, and the future. I chose a previously mentioned definition of the word safeguard because it explicitly mentions protecting something so they are not, between other things, lost. Loss is the key word here. Our cultural heritage is all around us. It's present in how we dress, how we express ourselves, our natural environment, the stories we tell, and even the music we listen to. Our cultural heritage is inherently a part of who we are. It makes us who we are to an extent. This is why we cannot afford to lose our cultural heritage. But we mustn't let it lose its intrinsic value. Safeguarding our cultural heritage is of vital importance for preserving our sense of who we are, and where we're from. Products of culture represent our ties to those who stood before us. We live in a world where our cultural heritage is in constant danger, be it through the destruction caused by war, looting, urban development, or climate change. Each time a product of our culture is destroyed, the memories that go with it and everything it represents are lost. Each time a cultural site is destroyed or an artifact of ancient times is looted, we lose everything it meant. Languages, which is the main topic of today's webinar, are such an essential part of our cultural heritage. Our native tongues are a huge part of who we are. They're deeply woven into our sense of who we are, and they remind us where we're from. Every time a language dies, a significant part of our history disappears completely. Both the tangible and intangible aspects of our cultural heritage are crucial to our past. They are equally important. Ancient traditions that to this day are still being practiced, songs that are still being, and languages that have evolved into the ones we speak today. They are all part of our history, and they are all so relevant to our sense of who we are, whether we realize it or not. There is a need to build awareness of the importance of our cultural heritage, especially in the youth. Culture is oftentimes dismissed as boring history classes, or traditions are often viewed as unimportant to us, and that needs to change. The younger generation is a generation of change, and this is why we must be actively involved in safeguarding our cultural heritage. While we may not be able to do things on a large scale, we can still help protect aspects of our culture around us, protecting our natural environment, respecting traditions, and preserving our historic sites are all small ways that the youth can become engaged in safeguarding our cultural heritage. Educating the younger generation on the importance of cultural heritage is key to understanding why we must guard it. I urge the youth to learn the importance, protect where you're from, and safeguard the cultural aspects that make you who you are. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. CARICOM Global Queen, Shaniza Prasad. We have just listened to you talk about preservation and safeguarding. This is amazing because for a young woman to have such eye and ear to the ground, I know the future is very bright. But I also know another young woman from Africa, the young woman who we have called our project, my colleague and I, is a young education and empowerment leader, and she's only 14 years old. Her name is Namara Loansa. She's going to take an African perspective to safeguarding of cultural heritage and global engagement of youth. Namara Loansa, please.
Greetings, distinguished guests, panelists, and observers. I'm Namara Loansa, a student from Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, and I'm here today to give you my thoughts on multilingual-based learning in order to promote inclusiveness in education and society. But I'll mainly be focusing on safeguarding cultural heritage through the concept of multilingual-based learning. Most of us can wonder how these two concepts relate, so let's just go ahead and see how they relate. Multilingualism, first of all, refers to the ability of an individual to speak more than one language fluently. Multilingualism in learning is very important in African societies because learning in one standard language, which most African countries use, such as English, which is a westernized international language, while still being really important, is ineffective in so many parts of Africa because there's a language barrier. And that is when mother tongue comes in. Mother tongue is a language that people speak from childhood. They're surrounded by it in their homes, by their parents, and their community around them. On this day of International Mother Tongue Day, it's time to signify the value of this inclusive education. When we incorporate using mother tongue in education systems, it promotes quicker understanding and cultural promotion through self-expression and creativity, as with literature. Literature is a form of English in which it's a form of language in which you're expressing creativity and ideas. With language, that's the main foundation for literature as a form of creativity. So with including languages in different school systems, you're able to promote people expressing their ideas and becoming people who embrace their culture in different areas and promote it. Some of us may not know the struggle that many African people face when going to school and learning in a language that you're learning. Because people when they start school, they learn in English. And so they're going there learning English and learning other things using English, which makes it difficult for them to grow as people. So many African children have to do this each day, which is what brings me to my main stand, multilingual-based learning. As I introduced in my speech, I believe that this is the most effective way to ensure effective education and promotion of culture. In schools, teaching should be in different languages. It should be, for me, I think it should be at least in two languages, which is mother tongue, which can be optional for those who have different mother tongues from different areas, and international language. With this, students are able to learn productively and be creative while learning an international language that helps them be able to get more career opportunities and be able to interact with people from different parts of the world. I think this is the best way to deal with the problem of mother tongue lacking in different countries, because when we learn in a language that's applicable to our mindsets and our understandings, we're able to use this in our communication, in our expression, and in influencing positive impact in the world. Thank you so much for listening and the opportunity for me to share my thoughts. Stay blessed.
Thank you. Thank you so very much, Namara. I've always loved to listen to you, and the electric that comes from your voice excites me. Next, it's Ms. Lala King. She's from the Sub-Saharan Open University. She's taking on multilingualism and universal access to information and knowledge. Ms. King.
Lala King from Sub-Saharan Open University. And today I will be talking on multilingualism and universal access to information and knowledge. My presentation today will interrogate multilingual information access in the online library. In our today's society, you want to know the meaning of something, you jump to Google, you look for it online. Most of us are no longer conversant with the fact that you have hard copies to anything for our phones, our laptops, pamphlets, whatever it is our new library. And most of the information we find there are also in English. In recent times, I saw some information in Chinese language, which I don't understand. So how do we help, or how do we get other languages to find what they are looking for? Google, you see them, right? For Nigeria, you see Hausa, Igbo, and Yoruba. I have never opened it because I personally don't think I'll find what I'm looking for. It's possible I will, but I have not opened it. And again, why I haven't tried that is that I don't want to be disappointed. I don't want to be asking for a meaning of something in Igbo language or Hausa language, and I'm seeing something that is not the exact meaning of it. It will discourage further use of such search engines. So I'm just going to read something I wrote down, and I hope I am fast enough to cover my time. Online libraries collapse the hurdles to retrieving materials, but the language world difficulty still poses problems because of the library's contents and contexts. We need to understand the effect of language and knowledge in their own preferences when digging into digital resource pools to provide new insights on the access to multilingual online library. In today's world, people are being confronted with huge digital library materials, increasing diverse in nature, multimedia, multicultural, and multi-language. At the UNESCO World Digital Library, the internet-based library displays and explains the wealth of all human cultures, and of course, universal access are applicable to the smaller and more specialized digital libraries as it is in the larger and international ones. Language and digital experiences. With many languages still underrepresented in the digital world, despite the clear trend of linguistic diversity of content on the internet, the lack of statistics about the number of web pages by the language, script, and character make clear for understanding about the issues surrounding multilingualism very difficult. Multilingual information access allows users to search for information written in a variety of languages without having to formulate search query for each language. Providing multilingual information access to document collections can range from adapting existing information for use by local communities to providing cross-language searches. Offering effective access to multilingual document collections also involves challenges for the designers of interactive retrieval systems. So where does this lead us? For multilingualism and universal access of information and knowledge to work, we must further interrogate the role of language in accessing information online, and in particular for developing effective multilingual digital library. Address the complexity of the language skill that people possess in a multicultural and multilingual society. Take, for example, there are more speakers of English as a second language than the native English speakers themselves, which indicates that many online users might search in English rather than their own native languages. Then there is the issue of language skill of professionals and the language of choice when searching online. Professionals from different fields are likely to have varying language proficiencies and skills, which affect the utility of multilingual information access across different academic disciplines. There are many opportunities for multilingual information access in digital libraries, particularly within the academic community. Many people who have multiple language skills find it easier searching for content in multi-language search engines. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. King. Thank you so very much. Thank you for that amazing contribution to this course. You have provided us some perspective in multilingualism and universal access to information and knowledge. Thanks again. All the way from Bahamas, Michelle Butler, the Millennial Voice, will be talking to us on intergenerational transmission of cultural knowledge and the mother tongue, the generation continuity. Michelle Butler, please take it away from there.
Hello to my Youth Gather Global family. First, I want to thank Dr. Osita, Dr. Ada, and the other members of the governing board for this opportunity. With protocol having already been established, my name is Michelle Butler, and I bring greetings from the beautiful islands of the Bahamas, located in the Caribbean, and it's an honor to be able to participate in this forum. And today, as we celebrate the International Mother Language Day, we recognize that languages are the most powerful way to preserve and develop culture and to promote it across the globe. And today I will be sharing on intergenerational transmission of cultural knowledge of the mother tongue, the generation continuity. Language is the medium by which culture is transmitted. It is a vital tool in the preservation and development of our heritage. And there are about 6,000 languages in the world, including the many dialects, and education plays an integral role in the fostering of multilingualism for inclusion in education and society. In a globalized environment, there's certainly a threat to losing our cultural identity, but through the means of education, I believe that we can protect and preserve it for generations to come. Can be fostered not just through traditional forms of education, but creative education through literary expressions, folklore, and fables as a part of preserving and passing along cultural knowledge of the mother tongue. As a creative in the Bahamas, the past 3 years, I have been producing performing arts presentations. And although we do have global influences in our show, it has been my mandate to always include elements of the Bahamian culture through our dialect or tongue, dance, music, and even costumes. And I would love to share videos of some of my multilingual and cultural shows at another time. But regardless of the differences in mother tongue, cultural and ethnic backgrounds, the arts is one of the ways in which people can feel included and united and ultimately transcend generations. Although I live in the Caribbean, the African culture in particular greatly impacted life and also the life of the people of the Caribbean, from the food that we eat, the clothes that we wear, and even our beliefs and family structure, which is closely interwoven with the African culture, as the Queen of Sheba stated earlier. Over the past few decades, with the acceleration of globalization, many Caribbean islands in particular have been losing our sense of identity and who we are as a people. But there's such a rich heritage in the Caribbean that stems back to Africa, and we all must make a concerted effort to preserve it. In school, we learned standard English. However, I remember the first time I was introduced to Bahamian dialect, and that was through music and literary expressions. I further believe that we can transmit cultural knowledge through the entertainment industry, through film and theater. I gained a greater love and admiration for my own culture through this means and my own tongue. And I was introduced to other cultures through TV series, performing arts productions, and social media platforms. So while books, writings, and other literary forms are ways that we can transmit cultural information, I believe in order to reach this generation and the generations to follow, we have to meet them where they are and that is through media, arts, and entertainment. And there should be more television programming for children and adults, engaging and inclusive social media campaigns, in addition to other creative forms mentioned earlier. I can personally say that those mediums have helped me to appreciate and embrace my own mother language and to respect and honor those of other nations. There is a need to recognize our mother language, the root and core of who we are as a people, which contributes to the beautiful, diverse world in which we live. As a society, we all have a responsibility, from parents, educators, policymakers, writers, and beyond, to teach, inform, pass down, and engage the next generation about their cultural heritage, including their mother language, to ensure generation continuity. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you. You sound like somebody from Cameroon or next to Liberia, and I'm happy that you identify with your mother tongue all the way in Bahamas.
Yes.
Thank you for that very beautiful expose on intergenerational transmission of cultural knowledge and the mother tongue, the generation continuity.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next from Kenya, my friend Cyril Mwaniki is the director of Advotech Nairobi. Cyril will be talking to us on the promotion of more inclusive educational policies and practices that integrate multilingualism. And she's going to be speaking from Nairobi, Kenya. Cyril.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Osita, for this opportunity to come and speak about promotion of more inclusive educational policies and practices that integrate multilingualism. Yes, I'm speaking to you from Nairobi, Kenya, and I'll try to be as brief as possible because some of the things that I actually wanted to talk about, I've had some other speakers discuss. And one of the things that I want to stress is about language, that we said language is identity that we cannot run away from. And I believe in Africa, with all the many diverse languages and cultures, that is what makes us a special group of people, because I believe that if we took language, mother tongue seriously, and we would not be struggling with saying, oh, how are we going to teach our children mother tongue? This is something that I believe that should come very naturally, and it helps for someone to just know who they are as a people, and they will not have to, we don't have to have our children later on trying to identify themselves and learn where they come from. So this should be something that we should just work on naturally. And like we said, charity begins at home. That is where all these foundations come from. When I look at the home setting, we normally look at even mannerisms, how children are taught how to talk and speak. They are taught that through mother tongue. So let's not forget about the language itself. Most of the things that we would want to look at in terms of engagement of the youth and in the education setting, I believe that things like music, where students are exposed to musical festivals and things like that, and also just understanding where this music is coming from, which country, that I think is one of the major areas. Music, as we know, has no barrier. And as such, you don't have to know a particular language to enjoy music. You can literally listen to any music as long as it resonates and you're able to just follow the beat. Literature is also one of the things that can be integrated in the education system to help our youth understand and appreciate who they are and where they come from. Dance, I think, is also one of the areas that I believe is highly inclusive. And when I look at the different cultures all over Africa, I believe that we cannot even finish it. We cannot exhaust it. It's very diverse. It's very inclusive. And I believe that if we engage our youth to appreciate dance, most of these things that we are talking about, people having differences, it unites. I believe things like music and dance, it unites people, even though that they are not speaking the same language. So for me, I think that is also one of the areas that you can use as inclusive for educational inclusive ways of having mother tongue. Art also is another area that I believe is very good in terms of how Africa can engage also with each other, even including trade, by exchanging and selling and providing things that I don't have in my own culture that I can be able to create and sell or have to trade with another culture. So I believe most of these things that we normally tend to think that we don't have in Africa, they can be able to be very well used to promote African culture. Like I said before, Africa is very diverse, and I think with including all the things that we would want to help society, including if we look at people in the villages, if people look at and say, oh, we have somebody in the village, they don't speak English, but they speak mother tongue, and they need some assistance in something, that means I can create a product or a service to help these people understand what it is they need to do in mother tongue, and they don't necessarily have to learn another language to be able to do trade or interact with other people. One of the things that I'd like to mention is, for instance, one of the countries that I admire very much in Africa in terms of language is Tanzania. Tanzania, I think they use Kiswahili as as the main language of communication. And you know that in Tanzania, even in schools, they do teach English in Kiswahili. They do teach mathematics in Kiswahili. So I think that it doesn't mean that because you cannot teach any other subject in the mother tongue, I believe it still can be done and be done very well. Multilingualism is where we are just saying that we want people to learn English, to learn Spanish, to learn Japanese, to learn any other language as an add-on to their own language. I think that is one of the areas that we want to really concentrate on. So I know we've discussed it and we've said that teaching mother tongue in schools can be difficult. I believe, yes, it could be difficult, but I think if we try and say that, you know what, let's not think about it that it is difficult. Let us just go ahead and do it. I believe it can be done, and I think that would be a very good way of making sure that Africa is known out into the rest of the world, that these are the languages they speak. So if you go to this area, even people who are visiting your own country, they should be able to learn one or two words about in the area that they are visiting, so that they can be able to communicate effectively with these people. As I wind up my speech, I'd like to just leave you with something to think about. We know now in society, I believe every parent, all they want to do is improve the lives of their children by exposing them to the world for their future. But I'll give you an example of a friend of mine who she spent all her life, even when she was a child, she was not even born in Kenya, that they were exposed that her father was a diplomat. So they went all over the world. That is where they grew up. That is where they were educated. And even now, they went to school in America, and that's where they are living now. And one of the things I remember one time, she mentioned it in passing, but it sunk deep, because she said, you know, our parents spent so much time trying to help us be in a developed world. And then now when we come to this developed world, we are not accepted. So that is just a conflict of saying that we need to teach our children that there is nothing wrong with you not being able to speak another language. you are not, it doesn't mean you're less of a person because you cannot speak a particular language for somebody else. As long as you know how to communicate in your language, you can be able to ask for food, you can be able to ask for assistance. So let us look at it in a more positive way and say that we need to look at mother tongue, that is who we are. Let us not cover it and say now the world has changed, that we need to be in the modern world. Culture will never be in the modern world. We are who we are. I think we just need to get it and promote it in the best way that we can. Thank you very much for the privilege to speak at this important forum. I'm definitely intrigued and I appreciate it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, my young friend Cyril. Thank you for joining us and thank you for your perspectives. We like the fact that you're giving us your perspectives on the arts, literature, music, and so on and so forth. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Now, please, if you don't hear anything else, there is the turn of the Chancellor to give us the outcome of this brilliant gathering. So please, I'm asking you to be patient because we're almost done. After the next two speakers, we'll go to the intervention where my friend from Kenya and my friend from Niger Republic will speak, and then the Chancellor will take that. But before then, let me invite the young poet laureate from Pennsylvania. His name is Melvin. His name is Melvin Sanchez from Grove City College, Pennsylvania in the United States. His poem is to engage in the youth, fostering multilingualism for inclusion in education and society among youth. So this is an ode to the young people of the world and the Mother Language Day. Melvin?
Hello, everyone. How's it going?
Good, Melvin.
So far, the panelists are doing an excellent job. Earlier, it was said by Her Imperial Majesty, she talked about language being such a widely important thing. Language can be spoken in, like we know, many different languages, even in its own language. Like we have slang. Barcelona, a city in Spain, they speak a different type of Spanish, which is really interesting. For our youth, I think it's very important to use the language that you have. Like Nairobi said, just because if you speak one language doesn't make you less of a person. You can use that language to encourage and promote youth and just your community in general. I specialize in promoting people entertainment, media, just being a positive influence. And I would like to share something I wrote on suicide prevention. So all around the world, I see the hurt, I see the pain. Does it happen in your heart or does it happen in your brain? People take their life, do they think about the outcomes, think about the future of friends, maybe future son? I see it, I hear it, I don't get it. That suicide stuff, I really ain't with it. Think about coming home to your little sister gone, never see her face again, real life, not pretend. Hanging from a ceiling fan, with a note in her hand, talking about you wasn't worth it, talking about you was. I just want to see the love of my friends doing better. I just want to see everybody live better. That was something I wrote just to prevent suicide, because I feel like suicide is such a slept on thing. People suffer from anxiety and depression. And I think it's our job as a youth to promote that. Thank you so much for letting me share.
Thank you. Thank you. That was a privilege to share your poetry with you. Thank you so much, Melvin. You are in Pennsylvania, right? You are in Pennsylvania.
That is correct.
Right?
That
okay,
is correct.
Brilliant. Yes, I live in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania too. So maybe someday I'll come looking for you. Yes, yes, sir. God bless you and thanks for your poetry.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, also from the US, I want to invite somebody who has dared to start a cultural institute. As a matter of fact, she has done so much work on her own, and We're very privileged to have her share with us today on the aspect of engaging youth for decade of action through multilingualism. I invite Princess Noblin Ogbonna, the founder of Igbo Amaka Cultural Institute in the USA.
You're welcome to everyone. I want to use this opportunity to say thank you to Dr. Adder and to every distinguished individual here, both old and young. Thank you, most especially the young ones, because it's not easy. Today, I'm gonna be talking about how we should promote the language to get more involved in Decade of Action through multilingual. Decade of Actions, there are 10 years left to be able to achieve this World SDGs. And how can we do that is to be able to share our visions and provide quality education, quality healthcare, and end poverty. And I think we've done that by trying to get a lot of government agencies, a lot of individuals, but there's something we are forgetting. And language is always kept behind when we are doing all of this, is that we have to incorporate lingua. We have to incorporate language in everything we do. You know, you come to the SDGs, they are in English, but there's somebody, I have a grandmother who is in Imo State who cannot read that. So how can we be able to engage people, the older ones, the younger ones that are illiterate, and not by their choices, but by circumstances? How can we involve them to be able to get along with us? We are opportuned and privileged to go to school, to understand English, to be exposed to travel across the globe. But there are people back home in Africa and every other developing countries who do not have the opportunity to go to school or learn languages like English, French, Spanish. How can we get them involved to see the things in SDGs and be able to say, okay, SDG 3 is about healthcare quality. 1 is about ending poverty. Like, how can we be able to break those things down for them? The only way to do it is for us to be able to provide those little informations in the native languages. That's the only way that we can be able to accomplish these SDGs by 2013, because we are doing so much. We've done so much in over the years, but SDG 3, I mean, SDGs in general, not just 3 or 4 or 5, we still struggle with trying to accomplish them. And how can we do that? Is by getting cultural leaders, community leaders involved in breaking this down. I am also gonna break down something, and it has to do with the importance of language. I personally believe that language is a beautiful thing. I personally believe that language is not just a tool, it's your identity, like we have our distinguished speakers speak before. But the thing about language is that when you stop speaking a particular language, it's like mathematics, it's about science. When you stop speaking a particular language, it leaves you, it goes away, it becomes something that you're not associated with or part of. And being someone that I founded an organization here in the US, it's called Igbo Amaka Cultural Institute, which was established in 2016. And what we do is not just teaching the language to anyone who cares to learn. We bring the language in a global scale, and that's because we provide our services. We implement the Igbo language across universities and colleges in the US. We don't just keep it to ourselves. We sell it to the US. It's something that we say, oh, University of Maryland, this is a great idea. We have a lot of Igbo communities here in Maryland. I think you would love this. How do you think about it? It's a funny thing and also a very sudden thing that in the US, where you have a lot of Africans, and when I say Africans, I'm gonna come home because home, charity, they say, begins at home. I'm from Nigeria and I'm from the Igbo tribe. If you come to the US, the Igbo people makes up more of Nigerians in the US. But it's unfortunate that every single time you see more of Hausa and Yoruba. And that is why it gets me angry and a bit offending when our parents here in the US say, oh, what can we do to teach our children our language? What can we do? What can we do? And I'm like, how does Yoruba parents do it? You know, we call China Chinese, we call Russia, we call Spanish, but we forget that we have the Yorubas. We forget to bring it home. We have the Hausa. We don't even have too many Hausas in the US, but their language is always the first. When it comes to the funny thing is that outside of Nigeria and what I've seen, experiencing and teaching the language, I teach Igbo language in a community college in Maryland. And the funny thing is, I remember the first time I brought the idea of teaching the language in this particular community college in Baltimore. They said, no, we already have a Nigerian language. I'm like, oh, what is it? It's Yoruba, it's a Nigerian language. You already have it. I don't think we have to implement. Do you guys have another language? Because we already have Nigerian language. And I said, no, Nigeria has 3 main ethnic languages, the Hausa, the Yoruba, and the Igbo. They say, oh, really? We don't know about Igbo. We only know about Hausa and Yoruba, and we already have teachers for that. And I had to fight to bring my own native language. We have the Yorubas promoting their language, even outside of the US, around the globe. How do they do that? It's a question that every single Igbo parent here have to ask themselves. We cannot jump and go to be like, oh, Chinese, they teach, Spanish people, they teach their children. No, let's bring it home. How does the Yoruba teach their children the language? And also, my experience of teaching this language since 2016, I've been teaching the language since 2016, the establishment of Ibamaka Cultural Institute. I discovered that the Igbo Americans, that is the youth that were born and raised here, actually have more interest to learn the language than the youths back home. If you go to Lagos or Abuja, which happen to be the 2 biggest cities in Nigeria, and you have someone that was birthed by an Igbo parents, you ask their children, Kedu, which is how are you? They say, Auntie, what are you saying? And it saddens my mind because, again, our parents will say, what can we do? What can we do? But we implement and instill doctors, lawyer, education, all of those big, more fancy educational opportunities on our children. We implement that. Sometimes you find out that some of the courses that our students are learning in schools are the things that our parents want us to learn. Now, why can't we use the same as parents? Why can't we use the same initiative and tell our children, I want you to study Igbo language? I bet you every single Igbo parents here and those who are watching across the globe, if I tell you to ask your daughter or your son to learn Igbo language in school and use that to find a job, will you do it? Absolutely no, because there's no job opportunity after that. And the reason why there's no job opportunity is because we don't promote our language. We don't see it as something that is worthy. And that's because we still have this colonialism master thing in us, whereby we feel like English and French is superior than our native language. And I'm talking to the whole Africans now, not just Nigeria. We still have the inferiority thing in us that, whatever that is brought overseas is better than what we have. And it's a mentality that we have to run away from. And before that, we have to talk to ourselves home, both at home. Our parents have to wake up. The blame is in every single person, not just the parents. The parents have to wake up. That's number one, because you as a parent hold the responsibility of teaching your children the language at home. Whatever they do outside is their business. But once they come home, I was raised by my uncle. He taught Igbo language in University Secondary School in Soka. And I remember what he would do to me and my siblings. He would say, if you want to collect any money from us, you have to beg, you have to plead for it in Igbo language. Our parents have to find a more creative way of making the children to be more engaged in the language, and not just more engaged, to find passion and love in the language. If your children desire something from you, You have to make them speak the language. You have to make them see the interest in the language. And when they go outside, in primary schools and secondary schools, I schooled in Nigeria. I did my college here in the US, but my primary and secondary schools in Nigeria. And remembering from experience, we do have PTA, we have Parents-Teacher Association meetings. And I don't think we bring these things up. I don't think that the teachers and the parents do say, oh, we want Igbo language to not just be regarded as a vernacular. I remember when I was in school, they would charge you for speaking Igbo language. And who is to be blamed? The parents and the teacher and the government. All of them needs to be blamed, because you can't charge me for speaking my native language. So the parents have a blame. The teachers have the blame, and the government have a blame in this. And also the church leaders, because we all go to church where they're speaking English languages. Why don't they speak, Igbo? And I say Igbo every time because I grew up in that environment, because I know that Yoruba people and Hausa people, they don't have any problem. They're doing very well in implementing and instilling the language in their children. And I bring this home to conclude everything that I'm saying is, African languages can only be instilled in us if we open our minds and love the language and love the passion, not just the dress or the food, because I feel like we promote the food, we promote the dressing, we promote every single aspect of our cultures as Africans, but we forget the languages. I know how to speak English. I know how to speak Igbo language. I know how to speak French, and I'm learning Spanish. And this has absolutely nothing to do with dialects. When I teach Igbo language to my students, I teach them Central Igbo. And I will tell you why, because Central Igbo is what everybody in Igbo understands, regardless of dialect. But you see some of the students are like, in my house, my parents call this this as opposed to that. So what I do is I try to get the demographic of my students, where they're from. They're from Imo State, Anambra State, or Abia State, and I try to break it down for them. There is nothing difficult in learning different languages, dialects, because if we can learn different languages, if we can learn Spanish and French and Chinese, that means we can also learn different dialects. And I can speak different dialects myself, and I'm only 27. And I feel like it's something that my uncle instilled in me, because he wanted me to be able to associate with everyone regardless of their dialect. And I also think there is supposed to be a promotion that everyone, I have some of my employees who help me to teach Igbo, who are in Nigeria, and they learned Igbo linguistics in school, in tertiary school, and they tell you that they don't have a job. I feel like those who actually brought up their mind to learn African languages in higher educational levels should be provided scholarship, should be provided opportunities in the government level and non-governmental agencies to be able to promote the learning of our languages. There is no job opportunities for those who studied linguistics, particularly Igbo language or any other African languages. Today, we have opportunities like World Translation. I do translation for some government agencies here in the US if they need someone who is an Igbo speaking. I think something of such should be provided in Africa as a whole, not just Nigeria. Opportunities should be provided for language translations. Opportunities should be provided for those who have dedicated their mind to promote the language, to learn the languages. And we should not make caricature of them. We should not laugh at people when they speak the language, their native language, as opposed to the English and French or Spanish that we are used to. We should encourage people. An average person in Nigeria speaks their native language, maybe Yoruba or even Igbo. And I see it's more in Igbo community. And people laugh at them because they think, oh, he can't speak English. Wow, ha ha ha. No, we should find a way to encourage people to build and instill and to love and to create more rooms for opportunities to promote our languages. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Princess. This is very insightful. This is very, very strong, I must say. But I appreciate the fact that you brought some courage to your presentation. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Now we are making huge progress. Like I said, please don't go anywhere because Madam Chancellor will be here with an outcome statement. But before then, let me invite my friend, the quintessential language expert from Kenya. She's of the languages department of the Masinde Mulilo University in Kenya, Dr. Teresa Oka. She will be talking about contributing towards developing a sustaining inclusive society through multilingualism, the way forward. Dr. Teresa, please.
Thank you very much. Can you enable me to share my screen, please?
Yes.
Thank you very much. My presentation is on developing an inclusive society through multilingualism. And I'd like to begin by a reflection of those. And the first is that Africa is one of the places where children are taught in a language that they do not speak at home. Now, Williams says, and I quote, that appropriate choice of language as a medium of instruction is not the entire answer to an effective education, but it is a necessary condition, implying that we need to choose the language very carefully. And Clegg and Simpson say that if you don't understand what the teacher is saying or what is written in the textbook, how can you learn? And that underscores the importance of language that we begin to instruct our children on. And I'd just like to give now a snap preview of the language policy in Kenya, formulated in 1976, and it is currently guiding the curriculum implementation called curriculum competency-based curriculum. And it envisages teaching the learners in mother tongue. When there is a homogeneous language, then the language of the catchment area is used. And it says that if the language of the catchment area is heterogeneous, then Kiswahili, which is Kenya's national language, should be used. And if it is English widely in that area, then we use English. However, the policy envisages that English becomes a medium of instruction from grade 4 onwards. That means that from early years through to grade 3, all subjects should be taught in the mother tongue with English taught as a subject. Now, as a subject, the policy gives the guideline that mother tongue enables foundational skills in speaking, pre-reading, reading, writing, pre-writing, and writing. However, despite that clarity in the policy, we still find that in Kenya, most learners begin learning in English despite the policy. And those are some of the factors that contribute. One is lack of effective implementation strategies. And then English is generally viewed as a prestigious language, and that if mother tongue is used, there are parents who feel that it is a form of ethnic discrimination. So they feel that if there is a section of the population that are instructing in English, then they are better advantaged than if they learn in mother tongue as the first language. In Kenya, we also have a multiplicity of dialects within the same language community. And that really makes a problem of implementation a bit difficult. Again, we have an increased rural-urban migration. Pre-service training does not do so in mother tongue, and yet teachers are expected to instruct in mother tongue. Then we have languages zoned into clusters. I talked about perception on the superior advantage of English. And then most importantly, for the areas that use mother tongue as a medium of instruction, the transition from grade 3 to grade 4 is not quite smooth. So that we have learners who are very fluent in mother tongue, then when they move to grade 4, it's purely English, and the transition is like 100%. All of a sudden. So it brings kind of challenges. And that's why Susan Malone says, without a strong foundation and a good bridge, it is very difficult to be a successful learner. So we need a strong foundation. Then the bridging needs to be strong as we move from language one, which is the mother tongue, to the dominant language, so that we are able to build successful lifelong learners in both languages. Now, my way forward would be first, and that is relating to the educational and academic aspects of using mother tongue as a medium of instruction. There is need to build capacity of teachers to train in mother tongue. Now, development of curricula in areas probably that are not. In Kenya, we have a curriculum now in place, even though that curriculum is in English. And then it is expected that various people would take it and translate it into mother tongue. There is need to work on attitudinal change through probably social media feeds. We have a number of radio stations coming in mother tongue. Those can be used to help. We could form language boards that speak and give direction on mother tongue related issues. I believe we should also promote mother tongue language writers. In Kenya now, with the coming of the new curriculum, we have a number of writers in language, but publishers are shy to publish owing to the market. They do not want to make laws. So they are counting like, how many pieces are we going to produce? We could form translation groups. And one of the issues missing is that a number of languages do not have orthographies and instructional materials, and those need to be developed. Now, for youths, I believe that one of the ways we can encourage the mother tongue, we could encourage traveling where the said mother tongue is spoken. When you are within that community, it becomes very easier to pick. We could also encourage youths to listen to mother tongue programs or films in the various mother tongues. We could encourage mother tongue speaking camps. And recently in Kenya, parents are realizing that the children need to learn mother tongue, and over the holidays, the camps are already coming up where children or students are instructed in their various mother tongue and they're taught how to speak those languages. We should also encourage mother tongue speaking at home. And some of the speakers have already alluded to this. You find there is a family speaking the same mother tongue, but the children do not even know greetings in that language. So this should change. We could be the change agents. And we should encourage youths, obviously, to know that being bilingual is okay. So as I wind up, I'd like to make an analogy of a story of a young boy, 9 years old. The boy realized that whenever the villagers had issues in their village, they would come to the father, and the father always had answers to whatever questions that they had. So this boy wondered, how come my father is so intelligent? He seems to have an answer to everything. So out of curiosity, he decides that he wants to test the father. Now, how intelligent is he? So one day when the father is seated outside on a weekend reading the newspaper, the boy goes and catches a butterfly. So he goes to the father and tells the father, Daddy, yes, I'm having a butterfly. Okay. So the boy asks, Daddy, is the butterfly alive or dead? So the boy was very happy. He says, finally, I get him. He'll not know whether the butterfly is alive or dead. And the father answered, son, it depends on what you do with it. If you squeeze your hand, the butterfly is going to die. But if you release and open your hands, the butterfly is going to thrive. So that's how I'd like to leave us today. We have the mother tongue butterfly in our hands. Individually, what are we going to do with it? Are we going to squeeze and let it die, or are we going to open our hands and let it thrive? Thank you very much.
I need to invite my friend Habu from Niger Republic to make the last presentation on intervention. And after that, Madam Chancellor would give the outcome statement that will skip the announcements because, well, I'll take the announcement. Then Laila Rahul, Director of Programs for YOUTHGETHER Global, will do the closing appreciation. So I'll invite Habu Abdullahi, the Global Practitioner of Development from Niamey, Niger, to speak to us on contributing towards developing and sustaining inclusive society through multilingualism, the way forward. Habu.
Yes, it's a great pleasure for me to be among this great audience for the first time. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you, Habu.
Okay, that's great, Doctor. So I listened carefully about the intervention of all the participants that participated. And I can assure you, I'm really amazed because I don't know that such a channel does exist, wherever people are promoting like the mother tongue language. Because most of the time we are thinking that if you want to succeed in life, we are obliged to learn like some of our official languages, such as French that we are speaking in Niger, English that is being spoken in other countries such as Nigeria, US, Canada, and so on. I really appreciated one of like before the last presentation by Princess, I don't know, I didn't remember her name, who said that most of the time people we are neglecting our mother tongue languages because we are afraid of not getting opportunities whenever like we are just keeping them and the learning maybe our courses using those languages. That's most of time we are running behind the international languages such as French, Spanish, English, and so on. So I won't be too much long because this is my first time, but I can assure you that this audience is a place that I am really pleased to be with. And I hope that the next presentation, like the next, what you call it, because most I studied in Nigeria because I spent almost 6 years there. I'm a quantity surveyor. I studied from 2003 to 2009 when I graduated and becoming a quantity surveyor and coming back to my country that I'm practicing my career, meaning that like surveying. But what I learned, I'm a teacher, part-time teacher. I'm teaching the quantity surveying course and technical drawing and other matters that are related to the construction. But the most difficult thing is sometimes to try to explain to our students some terms that they are not used to. And sometimes we just manage to include our mother tongue language, even though that in Niger, as I wrote it, we have at least 10 ethnic groups. And if we say that we are going to teach in those languages, it will become a bit difficult because a Hausa man might not learn Zarma, Arabic, Fulfulde, and so on, but we are trying our best. And I hope that parents will strive in order to keep their children like having those languages in mind, because it is our identity. If we lose them, we are losing, like we don't know where we are from and we don't know where we are going. So I hope that I will have that in mind. And the Africans all over because I heard that there are some Asians and so on, all over that we have to keep our mother tongue languages as tight and learn other languages so that we can exchange, we can communicate with others as we are doing now. We are making use of English language in order to communicate. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Habu. Thanks for your perspective. We are happy you're able to join us from Niger. We also want to thank every other speaker before Madam Chancellor takes the mantle to deliver the outcome statement. But like I said, I will take an announcement before Her Excellency Ambassador Laila will do the closing appreciation. I want to thank you guys again. Thank you so very much. Thank you. Madam Chancellor.
Wow, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Elster. You've been doing so well, moderating these sections. I know now is getting late in Nigeria because I can see your voice trying to. So
it's a Lent. It's a Lenten season.
I know. So it's been so wonderful intervention, opinions, and statements from everyone here. I was so excited hearing, especially from the youth group, what they actually presented, in their various thoughts. It's not easy knowing that we have a growing generation that seems to be interested with development. So it's very, very interesting. I want to acknowledge the grandchild of Omenoko. That was one of the, in fact, I read that Igbo, I read it, while in secondary school. Yes. But it pains me that we growing children don't appreciate what our parents have laid down for us. We don't expect it. That Igbo book, the one that called Isiaku Daranani, I don't think that two books need to be forgotten. Yeah. That was why I purposely went to the net and saw the cover of that book, because I know that was a translation, but I wanted to bring it up to you. So we have there's need to even bring those books on board, because one, it will help this younger generation, like the children born outside the environment across the world, like Tony from UK, his children, they're supposed to watch, or even if it's through movie, true stories, you're supposed to watch them and listen. Another, again, is that the global development, the sustainable development goals, the UN Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres, has called on action, people getting involved to the decade of action to make sure that SDG work within the next 10 years. Now, we have schools, children, nursery, primary. We want to introduce sustainable development goals, but nothing to show them, no poems, no come down story for these children in order to begin to actually understand what is sustainable. And these 17 goals are so deep that it's like a role model, development role model. That's what I call the development role model. Because when a child knows that I want to eradicate poverty, he will begin to work hard. The only way I can do is to go to school, pass my exam, be focused in my education. It continues up to university. He will not stop. He will not drop out from school. He will not stop halfway. You want to continue to make sure that his future, his generation, his sustainability overcomes poverty, overcomes hunger. So, but some of these things, they need some breaking. They need some lawyer terminology to get them excited. In those 17 goals, there are opportunities, career choices, decision-making. A lot of things are so much in those 17 goals. But how do you break it down for these children to understand and grow with it? I always use myself as to the young ones. When I was in secondary school, under 14 years old, one of the evenings, during holidays, we were in the living room watching the 9 o'clock news. And everything, Emeka Anyoku said, Emeka Anyoku said, Emeka Anyoku said, Emeka, I didn't understand. Then he was the Secretary of Commonwealth. And I asked my dad, Is it only men that go to Commonwealth? And he told me it's only women. When you come first in classes, it's only women. Then it's only because you just put it just to task me because you have seen where my interest was going. And he told me about United, he told me about World Health, he told me about United, he told me a lot of things in those about the global community. And I started nursing the idea. I want to go to United Nations. I want to be there. And immediately I had the opportunity to come to United States. I got myself to United Nations. So this is what we need to do, that if we expose these children, the younger generation, starting from nursery education about the SDGs, they grow up, to have wider choices. In Nigeria, especially in the Igbo community, my child must be a medical doctor or a lawyer. But there are a lot of lucrative courses that are better than medical doctors and lawyers. But because they don't have the knowledge, they don't have multiple choices, it's difficult for them to align their education in that dimension. So I want to thank us for all this presentation. Before I give my outcome, I want to thank Dr. Teresa for her last example. And I want to tell you that we had already switched our languages a long time. Since the time we married Western languages. I give you an example. In any part of in Africa, a child who is 2 years or 2.5 years starts school. What language does he start with? A is apple. Z is zebra. This child has never seen it. And the teacher will recite it. They will sing it as poem. They will dance it. The children will say A is apple. Da 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 da. Z is zebra. Unlike their fellow children overseas who have seen apple, eaten apple, gone to the zoo, they have these opportunities. Why don't you start the first day the child steps in school? A is aka. Why don't you start with the common languages? Aka is hand in my language. Why don't you start it in Kia mother tongue? Why don't you start in Arabic tongue? In school curriculum. So that the child will grow with it, that by the time he begins to learn apple, zoo, zebra, he has understood what it's all about. He doesn't need to cram it. So these are giving us foundation that throughout our education, we are doing what? Cramming to pass exam. So we had already switched our language, our mother tongue. Not to talk about my tribe of Southeast Nigeria. If you teach here, if you have a school that speaks Igbo and you send your child, that school is not a good school. They must send their school to a school that speaks English, where probably why somebody who, hi, how are you? Is the head of the school. And that is what they advocate. That's what they appreciate. So we have already switched our language. And if we begin now to unearth our hand, then we'll begin to appreciate our heritage, our culture, and learn and begin to safeguard it. This is one of. Another thing is that the white collar job. Of course, just as the priest has said, if you go study languages or native language, you don't get a job. They take you to a teacher. And when you don't get a job, what are you going to do? You can't end poverty, you can't end hunger, you can't maintain your health, you can't even progress. So we have problems. White collar job, language is not giving us wider choices, not giving us wider opportunities. Therefore, our culture is dying, our heritage is being killed. So our mother tongue day, because all these things we have taken is very, very good that we can maintain. We can maintain our culture and heritage by really, like what we said in the opening state, that this is one of the policy issues that need to be bring on board. And we have to change some of these dynamics, so that our life, our future will be more sustained. Without that, we are not going anywhere. And very soon, these children, we are born this time overseas, United States, UK, Europe, all these other countries. They don't even know the name, the meaning of their family name. They don't even know their family tree. Not to talk of learning the language. So we have a problem. And when they don't know their family, then you can't expect them to go home. You are wasting your time. You can't expect, oh, let's go to, you want to know your father, you want to know your grandfather. You are wasting your time. You either become enmity with them or they leave you alone. So we have to really go back to the drawing board and check ourselves. We need to bring our stakeholders. We need to get community leaders, just as Dr. Ezi was talking about Ojikalu and these are the disadvantaged situations that kids don't discourage them from learning the language. You can see the effort of a young child. Instead of such a person to encourage him or her, he killed the spirit. If that boy was encouraged, he will pull up his peers, his groups, his age mates. So the thing is expanding. And from them to their unescape, they would have even created a social media on native languages. We have Facebook in English, we have it. What about social media? Twitter, Instagram, and all these in English? It is only we in Africa. That is why I appreciate the regional chapter of YOUTHGETHER for starting this, especially on mother tongue. It is very, very a problem in us in Africa. Go to the Asia community, go to Mexico. A child will write essay, or a child of 5 years will write essay in their language. But us, we can't even write our name in our own language. So it is best for us to change, begin to talk about it. Let's in fact, if you have social media, share this concern, let it go viral. Let people begin to understand the need that we thank God for UNESCO for taking it as a mandate to bring out February 21 every year as a day for mother tongue, to address some of these issues. Our mother tongue does not have style. Hi, what is your name? My name, Ada. Ada. Not Ada again. Ada is not my name. It's Ada. That is the cultural name. Osi guy. It's not Osi guy. It's Osita. Let us learn to pronounce our name like that, not just trying to blend it, in order to suit with the millennium style. There is nothing like millennium style in language. If you miss that style, the original style, you have missed it forever. And it can never be brought back. So following the mission of YOUTHGETHER Global to engage youth and students for the United Nations Decade of Action and the principle of equity and inclusion in education to guide the learning recovery process, the outcome from this viral conference and YOUTHGETHER Global Governing Council will be the declaration of Languages Without Borders for All initiative to bring the attention of an education of the Decade of Action through the mother tongue. Through the Declaration on Languages Without Borders for All, YOUTHGETHER Global should enact further action with respect to the youth and student participation through our 4E's initiative, which is E, education, to edify and engage for global action towards the pathway for lifelong learning. Entrepreneurship in discovering new ways of combining resources and generating market value in the process. Empowering the youth in developing their inherent skills. Exchange programs embedded in African languages. Having youth from the Igbo land going to Kenya to exchange ideas, exchange cultures, learn about their community in their native languages. Now, teach them about their language and on vice versa. These are what of exchange program, and this is what we tend to do on the Languages Without Border for All. Of course, we are going deeper into education, on this issue about languages. And we've come to a reasoning that YOUTHGETHER Global Council will utilize the Kenya country chapter and African region as a pilot to flag up this initiative. And the first action is, the first action is the collection contest on one paragraph of 300 words of any native language of Africa with English version, included on thoughts about sustainable development goals and decade of action. This is an assignment we want to give out to the youth. an assignment that has to do with submitting a 1 paragraph of not more than 300 words in any native language, and paragraph of each English version on your thoughts for sustainable development goals and a decade of action. We have these 17 goals. As a youth, you need to design your thought, but we don't want it originally in English. We want it original in any language, whether it's your mother tongue or any language you know, but not English. However, you can put the translation of English at the end. But what we want to publish as a journal is your native language, and submit it with your name, your passport photograph, your email address. The contact for the email is on this. We are going, the secretary will share it to every youth again, and then you share to your friends. We will be glad to get it ready before April 1, when we gather again for the UN ECOSOC Youth Forum. So it's very important for you to think about begin to develop your balance, your thought balance. What is your opinion? What is your intake about the development goals through using your mother tongue? We call on youth and students to participate. We also plead with our stakeholders to sponsor the prizes as incentives to encourage their participation. I wish to use my position as the Chancellor of the YOUTHGETHER Global to appreciate the Kenya country chapter. Under the leadership of Mr. Tobias, unfortunately, his energy, his light disappointed him from participating. He was trying to, at the point his light went off. For taking the lead to organize this regional event, you have truly set the pace for other regions of YOUTHGETHER Global. As Oliver Twist, Kenya, East Africa, and Africa are expecting to do more, and we need to do more. The entire Youth Governing Council congratulates you, Tobias, and your members in Kenya. In conclusion, the development of multilingual education based on mother tongue instruction will not only improve learning outcomes, but also help to maintain linguistic diversity and multilingualism, a key element of inclusion, which has the potential to foster powerful emotional and cultural ties between humanity and communities. I want to appreciate all the speakers. I want to appreciate Her Imperial Majesty for her motherly love and care to this YOUTHGETHER Global. Ever since we launched it last year, she has been so supportive. Your guidance is immeasurable, but as children, we continue to lean on you to grow and learn more. Thank you for all the support you've been giving us. We are not going to get away because we are still growing. And as our mother, you continue to be with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You're welcome.
Thank you there.
Thank you.
I appreciate all other speakers and the youth. You did so much. Your presentation, it just ignited my inner emotion. The lady from Tanzania and Uganda, the two teen girls from, I think Tanzania and Uganda, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Your presentation was so committed. There's a lot of commitment in what you presented. And I want to encourage you in your various schools. We are coming to use, we want to make you leader of YOUTHGETHER Global School Club, where we begin to touch all this. So the board chair, Dr. Esther, and I will get back to you to see the modalities of establishing the YOUTHGETHER Global School Club in your institution, because these I want to get everyone on board. Let us understand. Even if we don't do anything, we don't give you money, but we'll try to give you empowerment and skills that will also give you a better choices and a better person tomorrow. I want to appreciate every other speakers, especially those who call out from different zones on the timing, staying up to now. Some of you are supposed to be in the church this evening, especially those Christians who are doing their Lent, supposed to be in the church, but we are here on this line trying to get us on. And also the media, the logistic department, will thank you for your efforts and your support. I appreciate everyone here present for your kind time and patience as we look forward to involving with even more as YOUTHGETHER Global continues to engage youth and students for the United Nations Decade of Action and the African Union 2063 agenda. I thank you all. God bless.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Madam Chancellor. Yes, but please, before you go, Your Imperial Majesty, we will take just one announcement, and the Chancellor has touched on it a little bit. Next YOUTHGETHER Global activity is in April, and that is the Wednesday, April 7th, 2021 to Thursday, April 8th, 2021, ECOSOC Youth Forum. The event provides a global platform for a candid dialogue among member states and young leaders from all over the world on solutions to challenges affecting youth well-being. It serves as a unique space for young people to share their vision and actions, as well as to provide youth perspectives on the implementation of the 2030 Agenda and the SDGs. Well, the modalities for these years will be determined by what happens with COVID-19. But the good thing is that YOUTHGETHER Global plans to hold a mock UN General Assembly virtually as a model UN program in the continent of Africa. So this is the announcement for today. And then I'll call on the ambassador, Leila, to please say YOUTHGETHER type of thank you to all participants. Yes, thank you.
One thing, hello from Dubai to Her Imperial Majesty, my queen, my sister heart. Thank you for being with us, always supporting us. Fine, my dear. Thank you. I know you're busy, and I am proud of you for the Lumi. Thank you again. To all excellencies, to
the Lumi is going fine. I hope everyone in
yeah, they will be. They will be.
Definitely,
that's why I bring the youth
definitely
in our
we will be. It's a promise.
No,
it's a promise.
I did bring the youth and YOUTHGETHER in Her Imperial Majesty Summit, and I talk about the youth, and she did a big deduction for what we are doing with YOUTHGETHER, and she was really supportful. What I want to see, we are all together, Your Excellencies, professors and doctors, which they are with us, our honorable guests. We are one. Unity is the humanity for sure. Diversity is the inclusion. We need that diversity, but we need to fight for our identity. We need to fight for our African heart.
Heritage,
we need to fight for that colorful culture we have today. If we don't really fight for identity and our mother language, what we will be? Chinese, they are speaking 10,000 language, but they are keeping everything in Chinese. Korean, same thing. Japanese, same thing. Indian, same thing. Why we don't do that? African? Why we are always separating ourselves? The return is, no matter who you are, from where you are in Africa, when you are living in other countries, you have to learn your mother language. Because when you come as a returnee, you have to be power when you talk, not like stranger, when never being stranger. That's why YOUTHGETHER is fighting to build this nation now and to build this committee and to have a mission and goal and sustainable development with a lot of caliber and a lot of people. That's why we want to help the young generation as future leader to keep going with them mother language. The mother language always been the heart palpitation of each country. So why we don't have to learn our proper language instead of learning international language? The mother language give you more opportunity to communicate with your own society. You don't have to be stranger in your home. So I think for now, as goals, we have to protect our heritage, our culture, our dignity, to protect our identity. So we have to protect our children in the end. We have to fight to keep at least our mother tongue language with the other privilege speaking other language. So Youth Gather today is a Make the Rock. Thank you to all young people who speak. Thank you to all high caliber who speak here. Thank you to Your Majesty for being always supporting us. And thank you to Dr. Ada, our High Committee Council and founder.
Absolutely.
Thank you to everyone, to Dr. Osita and to Diane, because she's preparing big platform for sustainable education and mindset and high level caliber for the Youth Gather. Welcome to Youth Gather. It's just the start. Thank you very much. We waiting you in Kenya.
Thank you.
Love.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. And now for our closure, for everybody to go, Tony Hill, Media Director, please say you started this program, so I wanted to close it. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you very much, all wonderful panelists. My name is Anthony Ugu, the Media Director of Center for SDG Global Education. All said and done, I did not hear anybody mention about technology, how technology can help our mother tongue or languages. But I want us to know that right now, 70 languages can be translated with device. As you speak your mother tongue, they hear it. So if you're Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa, Spanish, Latino, Kenya, wherever you're from, go back to your roots and plan on how to get your language added to these 70 already have, so that you will not be lost. Thank you, and I want us to stop here. Thank you very much.
Play the music that says goodbye to Her Imperial Majesty and to all of us, please. Thank you.
I'm going there. Thank you.
Blessing that, Your Excellency and Your Majesty. Thank you.
Can you see youth in cultural attire? See how great they're looking.
Beautiful. Oh, Your Majesty, so beautiful.
Can you see?
Oh, fantastic. I love the video. Can you share it with me in my WhatsApp?
Sure, I will. Tony, send. Okay, I'll
It's
send it
fantastic. I will put it in my social media.
Can you see?
Wow. So beautiful.